April 14th, 2022.
It's not, I had the same conversation, yeah.
We operate under the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Chapter 26 of the Town of Danvers General Bylaws, the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. After each applicant presents his or her request and the board has had time to ask questions and discuss the project, we will accept questions from the audience. Because this is a public meeting, it is required by law that you give your name and address first. Although we may disagree on the issues raised, all persons present during this meeting are expected to be civil to all other meeting attendees. This includes the members of the commission, staff, abutters, concerned citizens, property owners, and project applicants. We also request that you confine your questions to the project and only as it pertains to the Wetlands Act. We cannot handle, nor do we have jurisdiction over, such things as noise or traffic. All problems not related to the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Danvers Wetlands Protection Bylaw must be taken up with other boards. That being said, let's move to roll call of the members. Peter Wilson is present. Vanessa Curran.
Present.
Chelsea King.
Present.
Ann McGill.
Present.
And Michael Splain.
Yeah.
First item on our agenda is a notice of intent for 105 Popes Lane, DEP file number 14-1379. Georgia has told me that all of our presenters are virtual tonight, due primarily to illness, I believe. So we would just, we'll have to watch online. So who is here to represent the town? Is it?
John, can you give us 1 second? I apologize. We do a pause. We just need to get the microphones fixed. Just a second. Sorry.
How's it going there, Mike? Been out running?
I apologize, guys. This may be what we have to work with here. One more time. Can you hear me at all? Yeah, no, we can definitely hear you. It's just unfortunately it's not amplifying through the room. It's just amplifying off my computer. This doesn't happen. Let's try that one more time. If you just want to give us a quick.
Skip over.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
We could do that.
Can you hear me?
Did the board hear that?
And I can hear it, it's just quiet.
Hear that.
George, is there something they can fix? Maybe we should just move to the next item and come back to them.
Yeah, are you
Let's do
okay with
that.
that? For 105 Bulls Lane, we're gonna move to the second item, probably save, I can't turn it on the page, but not long, while we figure out this. Apologize.
a small version of this. Right here.
Bill, do that.
Okay, so let's do that. Is that me echoing? It is. Next item on the agenda, we will go back to 105 Pope's Lane once we get our technical issues resolved. Next item is notice of intent for 108 Dayton Street, DEP file number 14-1380. The applicants are William and Lindsay Reichman, and to represent them is Bill Manuel.
Bill Manuel, Wetlands and Land Management. And right over here, they have a relatively simple project. It is an addition that extends its buffer zone. Of course, we've got a plan up on the screen, but everybody's got their plan in front of them, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's this 17 by 20 addition on the right side of the home. I marked the wetlands back in the fall. The survey located. The property is fairly large, and there's quite a bit of no-build zone on the property. You'll notice that the addition does extend into the no-build zone by about 98 square feet.
Excuse me, Bill, just one second. On the plan that we're looking at, where are the no build and the no disturb lines?
They are there. They are, figure out what symbol they
Here, this
are.
one's easier. It's like zoomed in. Here's the 35. They're right here,
Oh, okay.
35.
Never mind, Bill.
They're
Vanessa
there's
showed it.
kind of
there's
across
the buffer.
pool.
And they go like
Okay,
that.
the addition
Yeah.
drove on
Yeah.
this side. right?
Then
Yeah.
they come down, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so it's 35. So it'll be
Okay.
between
So the
50 and
wetlands
35.
are all.
We have a plan up on the screen.
Okay.
Dayton Street would be down here off the plan. This is a 20 scale enlargement. There's a key plan on your full-size sheet that shows the entire property and where this all falls. You come up the driveway, it's a shared driveway, the 104 is over here. And wetlands, basically this part in here, not all of it between here and Dayton Street, but a lot of it is vegetated wetland. I flagged B series on this side of the driveway, and then the A series runs up along the front yard. There's an excavated ditch right through here, and it runs up along both sides of that ditch, and then basically curves around the backyard. But this is the addition right here. This is the 35-foot no-build, no-disturb line, and this is the 50-foot no-build line. And it doesn't show up well on this scan. Right in here is a big shed that's been there since well before your establishment of the 50-foot no-build zone. And you can see that most of the encroachment over the no-build line happens to fall within the footprint of that shed. There's about 98 square feet of the addition that is over the no-build line. My narrative has a fairly detailed alternatives analysis. Basically, the purpose of this is it's a single-story addition. It's on a slab. It's a very modest addition. The purpose is for expanding at-home office work, and then occasionally when the in-laws come, they have a place to bunk in. You look at where we could put this addition, and this is the garage over here. It's, you can't really walk through the garage and put the addition on. There's already a deck back here. You don't want to put it right on the front of the house. This is the only logical place to connect this addition. And the encroachment into the no-build zone is unavoidable. Frankly, they would have liked to have had a larger addition, but through the architect and all through the process, we counseled them on the stringent requirements of your bylaw and minimizing the encroachment into the no-build zone. Fortunately, this is a very big lot. It has an awful lot of land in the no-build zone. And so by the formula in your bylaw, you're allowed to actually encroach 20% into the no-build zone, assuming that you've gone through the alternatives analysis and this doesn't have a detrimental effect on the interests of the act. I've also given you a detailed discussion on that as well in my narrative. I'm not gonna go through all of your interests. But we end up, the grand total, ignoring the shed footprint, it's 98 square feet, and that's less than 1% of all of the no-build zone on the property. So we're easily compliant with the criteria that you've established in your bylaw to be able to grant a waiver. The work zone is protected by a mulch stock right through here. We've offered some mitigation here in support of the 98 square foot encroachment. We show 100 square feet of area that's going to be vegetated with native shrubs. Suggested the rhododendron, pepperbush, arrowwood, highbush blueberry. They're all, other than the rhodies, they're all found in the adjacent wetlands, so it would be a nice expansion of the buffer zone. So it's a fairly simple project, fairly simple addition, and we're hoping the commission sees it as I see it. Thank you.
Set? Okay, let me just open it up to questions. Why don't we start with Vanessa?
Thank you. So I see that you have a 17 by 20. But you have the 20 going the long way into the buffer zone. Did you consider orienting it the other way, having the 17 go away from the house and the 20 along the house?
Yeah, you have to look at the interior of the home and how it's connecting and how you're gonna move into this room, and that's why it's, the narrow dimension is connected to the home that way.
Okay. And then the mitigation plantings is beyond that, and then moving to the right side of the property, is that all woods in there?
It is, yes.
Okay,
So it's building off of that naturally vegetated buffer zone.
okay. I think that's all I have right now.
Okay. Ann, any questions, comments?
In adding the addition, what is the plan for rain runoff on the roof there?
Yeah, we're just
Is
gonna
it
direct it.
connected?
We're just gonna direct it to the ground. That's the way it runs now. There's no problem with erosion. It's a very big lot, and pretty substantial vegetated strips between the wetlands and where this addition is. It's about 59 feet. It'll be, a peak in the middle here, so water will shed front and back. And I believe that's right. There's a peak in the middle? Yeah, so
Okay.
there's almost 60 feet of travel
Mm-hmm,
to the wetlands in either direction.
okay, okay. Very good, thank you.
That's it, Ann?
Yep.
Okay, Nye, any questions?
Yeah, so, what's the nature of the buffer zone? What's it consist of?
In the area of construction, it's grass or the footprint of the shed.
And does it get wet there?
No,
No.
it's high and dry.
And what's the size of the house, the current footprint?
I haven't calculated that. I can, roughly.
Yeah, well, just, is it a one-level house, Bill?
No, it's a two-level home.
Mhm.
The addition will be one level.
Yeah, so how many rooms, for example? So there's no, they're building this for an office. How many rooms in the house?
How many rooms are in your house?
They know.
Uh,
How many? Like 7, I would say. Oh, 7. Oh, okay. So, and the two-level, but this addition will only be one level?
That's correct.
And how will they access the addition? Will it have its own walkway or
No, through the interior of the home.
through the interior?
Mhm.
Yeah. And Vanessa had asked about reconfiguring with roughly the same square footage, and that's why, can you say why that's not practical?
Yeah, the interior layout of the home is such that this is the logical place to break through a wall.
Well, what does that mean?
The way the home is, the rooms are on the inside, that's where
Because it'd
it's
be a
most
particular
logical.
wall there or something, you gotta be either
Yep.
side of a wall perhaps.
Right.
or
Yep,
something.
exactly,
So it's not feasible to change the configuration.
correct.
All right, that's all I had, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike. Chelsea?
Sure, so you're showing where you want to relocate the pool mechanical equipment. Where is it located right now?
It was just a little bit over here, wasn't it?
It's just on the other side of the fence line there. So where it's showing up there.
Right in,
Oh, so
Oh,
you're just
okay.
bringing it in?
bringing it over that fence.
Oh, okay. All right. And yeah, could you speak more about the proposed, like, maintenance of the plantings that you're going to do? Like, how are we going to guarantee that they get established? And who's going to maintain them?
it's a small enough effort that I would really put the onus on the owners to make sure that vegetation survives through the life of the order of conditions. And then after that, it's intended to be no maintenance at all.
Right.
It's supposed to be just an extension of the woods.
Okay.
So, the homeowners, they'll water it. Fortunately, it's right near the house. They can water them and make sure they survive. And when it comes time for the inspection for the certificate of compliance, if there's any that didn't make it, you can always specify that you have to replace those.
All right. That's all I had.
Yeah, very, very simple mitigation.
Okay, and technically, it's not even, that's a measure of good faith by the applicants, right? It's
Right.
not,
Right,
we're not
we're asking for a
requiring-
waiver, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to say yes.
Okay, good. Appreciate that. Just one quick question. Looks like the 35 line goes through the pool. Was the pool, how long ago was the pool built?
Oh, that pool, how long's that pool been in?
It's been there.
It was before we bought it, but the house was constructed in 95, and I believe the pool was like 97. A few years after the house. Okay, the reason I asked, Georgia, there's nothing open for this then, right? I mean, they must have come in front of the board at some point, because that would have been building
Yes,
within
you do
35.
have a filing for 108 and I believe 106 and 108 Dayton Street for the construction of 2 single-family homes with a shared driveway. I didn't pull the plan, so I'm not sure if the pool was included then or they came in for a separate filing. And I believe that filing is closed out.
Okay, that's my question. There's nothing open.
Could I just follow up on that?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So are you saying that they came in, the pool was put in after the house was built and they came in for a waiver?
No, I'm not saying, I'm not sure if the pool was included with the original house build or if the pool came in after with another application. I can check right now
Yeah.
while the board's talking if they want.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering if it's something that should have been done.
Well, it should have been done, obviously, yes.
And then
Is that
if it
something you can
wasn't
quick check,
done,
Lee?
How do we address
Yeah, I
that?
can see if the
Yeah.
filing was done, but I will say, knowing the house had to get a building permit for that, and it was flagged with the Conservation Commission, a pool of that size in the rear yard, I would assume the building inspector there would have required them to go to Concom, but I'll check right now. I'll let you know when I find it if you wanna.
Okay.
Okay.
In the meantime, we have to vote on a waiver, first of all, and then we'll vote on an order of conditions. So personally, I see as they're really infringing on such a small amount within the no-build zone that I don't see any problems with issuing a waiver to let them build this. So that being said, if anyone else has another viewpoint, now is the time to say so.
No.
No? Okay. Is there any comments from the public? None? Okay, so let's proceed. So the first thing we need to do is close the public hearing, so if someone can make a motion to that effect,
Did we
please.
close on the waiver or on the whole thing, George?
Did you vote on the waiver?
No, we haven't
No, this
voted
is
on
just.
No, no, don't we close
Close
the hearing
public
first?
hearing.
We should
Public
close it.
comment, close the hearing, vote on the
Fine.
waiver,
Right.
vote on the decision.
So we're closing the hearing right now.
I make a motion to close the hearing for 108 Dayton Street, Department File I'm sorry, DEP file number 14-1380.
Okay, the motion's been made to close the hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to the waiver. Does anyone have any other viewpoints they'd want to express before we move to vote?
No, can we add the maintenance of the plantings as a special condition, and would that be on the waiver or the order of
That's on
conditions?
the order of conditions.
Okay.
Order of conditions, yeah.
If that, I'll make a motion that we grant a waiver from section 3.1.4 on the no-build zone setback to allow this project to go forward for 108 Dayton Street, DEP file number 14-1380.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you have any information for us, Georgia, before we?
Yeah, so I only see one filing in our system, and that appears to be 1994, and that was the construction of the two homes with the driveway. So I won't be able to determine for sure if the pool was included in that until we pull the plan from the basement and look at that approved plan.
So if, and it's not their fault, they
No.
bought it after. If it turns out that, no, they never came in, we would have to address that, because that would run with the property, right?
Yeah, if the commission wanted to issue a violation and require that they remove the pool,
Or come in and get a request,
I mean, that would be,
request relief, you know?
yeah, and considering it's been there for quite some time and a
Yeah.
building permit most likely was issued knowing it's a pool, it would
Yeah.
need to be inspected.
And when it was built, it was the 25-foot,
Oh,
25,
right, yeah.
35.
Yeah, that was
Right.
1994.
Hmm.
When did you purchase the house? And
Yeah.
so statute of limitations has already
Yeah,
passed.
yeah.
When you
Mm.
transfer real estate, you have 2 years,
Yeah.
and beyond 2 years, and
Okay.
I don't know if that's so with the violation.
And it may technically not be a violation. I think we're
Right.
getting into
Yeah,
splitting.
well,
it's
That's-
not it's a,
yeah,
the pool's in the buffer zone, it's not a wetland violation.
right, right. True.
Okay, just good questions to ask, but, okay, so if there's any other issues, now's the time to raise them. Otherwise, why don't we make a motion to issue an order of conditions?
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 108 Dayton Street, DEP file number 14-1380.
And Chelsea, you had some conditions you wanted to add to that?
Just a special condition ensuring the maintenance of the mitigation plantings until they're established by the owner.
So with staff to confirm?
With
or-
staff to confirm, should I add that?
Yeah, I can add that. I can work with the homeowners once they are planted, let me know.
Okay.
And then, of course, hoping they look for a certificate of compliance, and at that time, the commission would definitely be made aware of things established or not.
Okay, good. Okay, so the motion's been made, there's special condition attached. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
so,
Good luck.
and come back quickly when you're done. Are we ready to go back to Pope's Lane?
We are ready to go back to Pope's Lane. I am happy to.
Okay, so let's go back to notice of intent for 105 Pope's Lane, DEP file number 14-1379. The applicant is the town of Danvers, and their representation is by?
John Bobrick, Bobrick Engineering and Construction. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's loud and
Thank
clear.
you.
Excellent. Great. My apologies for not being there in person. Our project team has been more or less devastated by COVID and the flu. So I am with you guys through Florida on school vacation week with my kids.
Right.
So this project, let me share my screen just to give you guys an overview of the location. Is at the town's former landfill. There's multiple mounds at the landfill. It's no longer an active landfilling facility, but it's an active transfer station. So if anybody's ever dropped off their brush and leaf and yard waste, it's over in the back on this paved area. You have Route 1 over here on the right hand of my screen. You enter the site through East Coast Road. The project itself is going to take place on this left-hand mound, which was originally constructed in a horseshoe shape because the filling operations concluded before the site was graded, probably most likely to its maximum elevations. So there's a volume void in the center. So this project was initiated several years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. The electric department had gone through the town and town-owned properties to assess where solar facilities could be constructed to offset the town-owned electric grid carbon footprint. They have goals, I don't know all of them offhand, but they have goals to offset a certain amount of their carbon footprint by like 2040 or 2050. So this project, its intention is to create a level area, relatively level area within the DEP standards to create a solar array on this landfill mound. Currently, is limiting topography because the horseshoe actually has 30% slopes on the horseshoe side. So you can't put solar panels there. So with the town, we came up with this plan to fill the site with soil. The town will accept soils from any amount of users, and the soil will be regulated by Mass DEP through the Solid Waste Division to be a certain standard. There's multiple levels of classifications of soils to be brought into the site, and the town will operate this site and accept soils at a fee. And we're going to bring in approximately 200 to 220,000 yards of soil, and we're going to level off this horseshoe area with this project. So you know where it is. So let me bring up the plans to show you the drawings and the overall reason why we are presenting tonight to the Conservation Commission. So the existing site, this is landfill mound 1, and you can see that the top of slope here is kind of a relatively flat grade. There's a perimeter access road that loops the mound completely. The entire mound is approximately 7 acres, and the area that we're going to be filling, this inside horseshoe, up to about this area, but this inside horseshoe is around 3.5 acres. Currently, all the stormwater enters this bowl and follows a swale along the inside of the access road. If you follow my mouse, hopefully you can, goes to a leaching basin and crosses the road and outlets near a flare station that extracts landfill gases from the facility, or from this location. So it currently discharges to the pipe daylights to a stone lined swale, which enters the wetlands along this right hand side, the eastern side of the landfill mound. Let me bring the next sheet up that shows the wetlands and the buffers. So this is our wetlands resource plan, and it shows the grades that we will be achieving by filling in this property. You can see there's wetlands to the south. The blue line on my screen is the wetlands line itself, which was delineated by DeRosa Environmental, and Mike is going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. The magenta line is the 35-foot no disturb. The orange line is the 50-foot no build, and the 100-foot buffer is the green line. So you can see we're along this area up here, we're within the 100-foot buffer, mainly for erosion controls. we've elected to install erosion controls on the outside, in this area of the outside of the access road, mainly because this site is going to be filled with soil over a 2-year period. So we're going to have snow removal operations going on, and I don't want these materials to be, entering the slopes and potentially, making their way around. I don't want any disturbance to be contained. So we have the erosion controls on the outside of the roadway. And similarly, erosion controls are just going to be in the buffer zone to the east and to the north of the site. You can see that there's no land disturbance generally within the buffer except for this eastern side. So as I mentioned before, all the stormwater enters this general area of this low-lying portion of the site. We are mimicking the stormwater patterns similarly by creating a sloped top of site, which is going to discharge into a stone-lined swale, which is also going to be lined with a landfill liner, an HDPE geomembrane. So ultimately, once stormwater makes its way into the swale, it's off of the landfill itself, because the water will not be able to penetrate the swale. And the stormwater devices downstream of that are also going to be lined with a geomembrane. So we have a couple stone check dams that come down to a plunge pool with swale outlets, and then into a detention basin where we'll have a multiple outlet structure to slow the stormwater from discharging to its existing location, which discharges to a swale. So we're going to reconstruct this as we're filling the site with soil. The general overview and the goal of this project is, like I said, to install solar in this area. This is going to create around 110,000 square feet of usable area, where currently we have nowhere near that. And offhand, the electric department told me it's going to offset, or it's going to power about 250 homes and supply 1% of the town's power portfolio. Mike, if you want, you can talk about some wetlands and stuff like that. You want me to keep up?
Yeah, go ahead.
All you. You want me to keep my screen up, or do you want to share
Yeah.
yours?
No, you can keep
Okay.
that screen up, it's fine.
Perfect.
It's Mike DeRosa, DeRosa Environmental. We delineated the wetland in February. It's a one continuous line from A1 to I believe it's 104. It's BVW, bordering vegetated wetland, on an intermittent stream, couple intermittent streams. The south side of the site drains to the east. You can't see my mouse, but it drains down to where it says landfill number 3. And then the other side drains more to the east, but more to the northeast. But everything's connected. It's one continuous system. Varies in vegetation, red maple in the canopy, in your typical shrub species, winterberry, sweet pepper bush in the shrub layer, and then cinnamon fern, sensitive fern, tussock sedge, a number of herbaceous species in the herbaceous layer. But it was a very clear break and slope, and a very straightforward delineation. So we can take questions if the commission has any, unless John wants to say something else.
Yeah, a couple, 2-3 other things I forgot to mention. So this project was more or less initiated in about 2020 with Mass DEP through the Solid Waste Division. And the Solid Waste Division had the town present this project to abutters through a notification process. And it's also gone through a corrective action design, which includes a stormwater pollution prevention plan, among many other regulated reports. This project is generally through the Department of Public Works and Stephen King, the town engineer, and Clint Allen with the electric department. That's all I can think of for now.
Okay, thanks. Let me just, we'll start with members of the board, with any questions or comments. Mike, you want to go first?
All right. The area that you're working on is, it's approximately 3 acres, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and did you talk about how much fill would be required?
Yes, it's approximately 200,000 cubic yards of soil.
I didn't catch it.
200,000.
200,000, it's on the
Can you
paper.
turn the volume on that? Somebody? I didn't hear what you said.
Yes, it's approximately 200,000 cubic yards of soil.
200,000 cubic yards.
How long will it take to get that much soil? Because you're looking for sort of donations, or you're going to solicit soil?
Yep, so this will be a facility that is open to anybody to bring their soil in. There's going to be certain standards and regulations. The owners of the soil have to hire a licensed site professional, which is a Mass DEP certified professional, to classify the soil. So it's going to go through an extensive process before it gets to the site, and the town will accept the soil at a fee to bring it into the site.
And the certification on the soil, that's not done on site, that's done, so when the soil arrives, I think, are you going to be sampling?
Yes, so the generator, the owner of the soil initially, will be classifying the soil on their site and certifying that it meets the standards. The package that is generated from the owner will be submitted to us as the engineer to review, and if it meets, then it's accepted and it gets shipped to the site. If it doesn't meet, then it's rejected and we stop it there. Also, as a secondary measure, there will be random soil samples taken at the site during the filling process to verify that the soil that's coming in is meeting the standards.
Yeah, that's good, because there's probably incentive for people to try to get rid of unwanted soil, I would think. Now, I was wondering with the solar panels, I don't want to get into it technically, but do they require maintenance by the town, or are they passive mainly?
There'll be, usually a solar facility has quarterly maintenance, which is very minimal impact to the area. The town currently has semi-annual maintenance on the existing landfill, which consists of mowing the grass and fixing any settlement issues or any landfill gas pipe issues. Currently, myself, Bobrick Engineering, we manage the facility for the town, so we operate the landfill gas system on behalf of the town. So there's regular maintenance always going on at the site to keep it within the regulatory standards.
And if there's like snowstorms or blizzards, things like that, does somebody have to go out and clear the panels, or do they basically clear themselves? Or with,
Typically, they're on their own.
They're on their own?
Yep, and when the solar facility is constructed, if it is within the buffer zone, the final setting of it, then it will be brought to you guys for approval also. So that'll be a completely separate project from this.
Okay. And my last question with regards to the stormwater. Currently, these are mounds, and you're gonna fill everything in and make it all level. Will that change how the stormwater is addressed?
I would say that 90 to 95% of the stormwater is going to mimic the existing patterns. Obviously, there's a little bit of offset with some grades changing, but roughly nearly all of the stormwater is going to be maintained in the existing discharge location.
That's all the questions I have, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Chelsea?
Sure, so with how long this project is looking like it's going to take, how are you going to stabilize the site in between, like, work?
Good question. So we are going to have permanent erosion controls during construction and also temporary erosion controls during construction. And we're currently coming up with some interim grading plans with Mass DEP and the Solid Waste Division for adding to the construction period stormwater pollution prevention plan. And it's going to mainly consist of some temporary sediment basins and stone check dams and erosion controls that are going to be installed and removed as rain events occur.
Okay. And kind of following that train of thought, are you going to be doing anything to mitigate, like, dust or mud coming off the construction vehicles as they come and go, like washing the wheels or anything like that?
Yeah, another great question. So we do have a plan to have a wheel wash device on site, and there's also a sweeper on site at all times. So the asphalt roads are going to be swept, and then there's also dust suppression in the stormwater pollution prevention plan, which includes calcium, broadcasting calcium, and that binds up soil and keeps dust down. There's also going to be adequate gravel and asphalt millings stockpiled on the site, which the roads will be top dressed and try to keep all the dust down as much as possible.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay, thanks, Chelsea. Ann?
And you were referring to the stone line swales, the plunge pool, that you were going to do some reconstruction to slow the water down. What specifically were you referring to?
So with the fill soil, there's going to be a modified stormwater pattern, but it's going to ultimately discharge in the same location. So currently, maybe I should go to the. Bear with me for one moment. Can't remember all my sheet numbers. So currently the stormwater is captured in this low-lying section along the access road at the bottom of the mound.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Almost. We're almost there. So there's an existing swale at the toe of the slope right now along the access road. And then there's a leaching catch basin here, which collects the stormwater, or the stormwater runs across the road and into the swale, which discharges in the wetland. So there's a stone-lined swale in this location. So with the work that we're going to do, we will be installing this new swale, this stone-lined swale along the southern edge just before the access road, which is going to have some stone check dams to slow the velocity down of the stormwater and a plunge pool to collect the stormwater, which will then overflow through a level spreader into this detention pond. And then we will have a outlet orifice. I have a blown up sheet of it also. Here we go. So this is the actual blow up of the area. There's an outlet orifice that's going to be constructed, a precast manhole, which will have an outlet pipe over to the existing stone line swale area. So like I was saying, it's more or less mimicking what's happening now, except we're going to have a lot more treatment of stormwater than we did before. And this meets all of the Mass DEP stormwater design standards, where currently it's just a grass swale. So this will take down any suspended solids better than what's there.
Okay, okay. And it sounds like that will have to be continually monitored over time as you increase the amount of soil in the middle. Is that correct?
Well, this will be like a permanent solution. So there's
Okay.
gonna be some temporary measures during the filling process, like a temporary pond, and temporary erosion controls to control any stormwater that has sediment in it. But when we're complete, this will be a permanent stormwater solution for this site.
Okay,
And it'll be, the site will be vegetated, and this will be a stone-lined swale, which this entire property will be maintained for a minimum of 30 years through the Mass DEP requirements.
okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Set in?
All
Thank
set.
you. Vanessa?
So you mentioned during our site visit that you were going to be stripping the topsoil from the area to be filled, and where do you plan to store that?
Yep. So in order to save bringing in more topsoil and just filling over some good material that's currently there, we're going to strip 6 inches of the existing topsoil and stockpile it on site. And we've ultimately phased this project into 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. So if the soil doesn't come in quick enough to complete the project, for instance, if over 2 years the town can only get 70 or 80,000 cubic yards of material, we've designed a phase 1 portion of the site where we can still get a good level area to use for a solar array. But if we do go to phase 2 and we are, achieving 100,000 yards of soil within a year, and we know we're gonna get to the ultimate goal, we're gonna strip the phase 1 grading area first. And we're gonna stockpile it over here on the left. We're gonna have erosion controls around that stockpile. And then we're gonna fill this area. And we're gonna create a large stockpile of soil. It's a temporary stockpile of the soil that we're bringing in. And once we know, we get to a point that we're either gonna get all the soil we want or we're not, we can make a decision to construct the permanent stormwater devices and use the topsoil that we saved to cover this area. And then we're done. Or if we go to phase 2 and we're doing the full 200,000 yards, we'll strip the phase 2 grading area. We'll continue grading this to its maximum elevation. Then we'll install the topsoil over it and seed it, so it's permanently constructed, while we finish grading off the remainder of the area to the left. So phase 2 soil stockpiles are gonna be up over here to the left. Same thing, erosion controls around it. And we're assuming, is it 2,600 yards for the phase 1 topsoil and 6,000 yards for the phase 2 area.
Okay, thank you. And just one more question. Also during the site visit, Georgia and I noticed that there was a lot of trash in the wetland area. So is that part of your site work involved at all to clean up any trash around the perimeter of the site?
Unfortunately, no. That is part of the transfer station operations through, I think Covanta is the current operator of the facility. So the town owns it and they have a third party operate it. But it's something that could be discussed with the DPW.
Okay. Is that good? Okay. All right, thank you.
Set?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, John, who will be on site to monitor your erosion controls and other sensitive areas?
So we are going to publicly procure a contractor to manage the site on behalf of the town. We, as the certifying engineers, will be conducting weekly inspections randomly, and we'll be conducting the random soil samples. But the town is going to hire a contractor to manage the site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on an as-needed basis, such as after a rain event, during a rain event, or they're going to handle the soil during the filling operation.
Okay, and you're not anticipating any different stormwater impacts during construction that can't be handled by what you have there already? Is that a fair statement?
No, yeah. That's why one thing that we're working with the Solid Waste Division is some additional interim sketches and markups of what we could do. A lot of these things are kind of subjective and up for discussion when you get a contractor on site based on different people's experiences. But we're overall going to have a couple temporary basins and check dams to slow any water down, slow any runoff down, provide treatment, and control the area as much as possible.
Okay. Could you just give us an overview how trucks will proceed when they come in to
Sure.
make a dump?
Yep, part of the submittal to Mass DEP included a traffic management plan. So initially, trucks are going to enter the site through East Coast Road. We're going to have a scale. I think we talked about it on the site walk. We're either going to have a scale up front, or we're going to have a scale out back by the leaf and yard waste paved area. So either way, trucks are going to make their way to this point, crossing the wetlands, and they're going to back in and dump their soil. They're going to back down the access road and dump, and we're going to create a large stockpile in this area. There's going to be equipment always on site and persons inspecting loads as they're dumped. Alternatively, we're going to create a one-way access road where vehicles are going to come around the corner, and they're going to tip the soil on the upland side as we get to that filling elevation, because ultimately there's going to be a point where we construct the permanent stormwater devices where we can't get through this way anymore. So it's a very subjective nature of construction when it comes to this, because we're not sure how fast the soil is going to come in over this 2-year period of filling. So it's going to be, we're trying to come up with measures to anticipate, when this happens, we'll do this, and when that happens, we'll do that kind of thing.
Yeah, John, where your mouse is right now, that's the access road that you mentioned?
Yeah, that's where we walked up the center of the horseshoe.
Now that,
There's
well, we walked up the side of the bank. Is that road right
Yep.
there? Now, that was
That's
pretty.
this
That was a
road
pretty
right
steep grade. Is that going to withstand trucks going up and down that?
Yeah. We're going, when we construct the stormwater devices over here, we're going to fill in this area a little bit to break that grade with some gravel, and help the grades of the road work a little bit better.
Okay.
But it's all based on how that crossing gets constructed. So we're going to do a little bit of pre-work. Like I was saying, we're coming up with some additional construction period stormwater management devices, just to help this area be a little bit more beefed up during construction, just in case if there's any issues.
Okay. And what is your timing for this project?
The town is anticipating starting this somewhere around July 1st.
That's pending town meeting approval of funding.
Correct. Pending funding, and it's currently, the corrective action design is going through Mass DEP's Solid Waste Division, and that approval will ultimately allow the project to happen. The town has also entered into a administrative order with the Solid Waste Division to do this project, which clearly defines dates and goals of the project itself, which regulates the town to 2 years of accepting soils.
Okay, good. Thank you. Are there any
Yep.
questions from the audience? Mr. Duggan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan, Selectman. I attended a presentation last week. The town engineer, Stephen King, he kind of just gave the same, pretty much the same overview that you just received here. But since that time, I had a couple of questions. And the first has to do with the wetlands that are potentially in the Peabody area, in the Peabody side of this boundary. So this line, this bottom bold line in the lower left side, that parallels the town line with the city of Peabody.
Right.
And I've noticed on some topographical maps that there looks like there's wetlands that kind of traverse that property line. And the question to the presenter is that something that requires approval from the Peabody Concom? Or is it far away, more than 100 feet away that it doesn't? So, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Did you hear that question, John?
Yep. So it's beyond 100 feet from the city of Peabody's jurisdictional boundary. So we are within the 100-foot buffer wetland of the Danvers wetlands.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that information. And then just one other question about the temporary scale that you just mentioned. Can you just clarify where that scale's actually going to be located? Because the purpose of that is to not interfere with the normal traffic that goes through back and forth to the by the scale house there. So can you just point where the temporary scale is going to be located?
Sure, not a problem. So currently, the town is evaluating several different scale options, and there is the location that currently exists for the transfer station facility is right here. And then there's a grass island in between, and there is a 30-foot wide or so paved area on the opposite of that, which is actually part of Pope's Lane. So we're debating on installing a temporary scale there with some construction trailers, porta potties, what have you. Or the other option is to put it in the back area. If you've been to the site, you've seen the large JRM television trailer. It's a nice level area. One thing we're working out with the scale company is on what is the most long-term best solution to put this scale. So the traffic pattern would be to come in, they would still enter through that side road, not bother the ongoing transfer station operations, and take the road out back and get weighed in, and then come back out here. And they can also drive back through, or they could run the loop on the backside of the transfer station also. So we've been working with, discussing these operations with Covanta, and no big headaches yet, so.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Thanks for that clarification. I appreciate it. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Hearing none. Chelsea, did you have something you wanted to ask?
No, I said thank you.
Okay, so I guess that's enough for the public hearing, so if we can make a motion to close the public hearing, and then we'll proceed with our voting.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for 105 Pope's Lane, DEP file number 14-1379.
Motion's been made to close the hearing. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, just a general question to the board. Is there any further comments, questions? Everyone thinking that this is a good project? If not, now's the time to say so.
I'm
Okay,
on board.
hearing none. Okay, so if someone can make a motion, we could issue an order of conditions.
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 105 Pope's Lane, DEP file number 14-1379.
Motion's been made. Are there any special conditions we want to add on?
Well, are there any outside the standard conditions for a project of this type?
Not that I'm aware of.
I mean, it is a substantial project, but a lot of those other conditions that were discussed would happen under other
Other
DEP state
DEP,
permits.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, then I'd second the motion.
Okay, very good, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Good to go.
Thank you all. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 3 is request for minor modifications for 15 Tibbet Street, DEP file number 14-1351. The applicant is Amanda Argren Moda. And you are...
Good evening. For the record, I'm Peter Rogan, and I'm with Hayes Engineering, and Amanda Motor happens to be my daughter, and Wayne Motor's my son-in-law. You may recall we were before you about a little over a year ago to tear down the house at 15 Tibbets and rebuild it. The rebuilding has been completed, but there were a couple of items on the order of conditions that we needed to address. The first one, I think, is fairly simple. There was a hot tub that we showed that was closer than 25 feet, and the commission wanted to see that move back to the 25-foot buffer line to the edge of the river, which is the seawall you see in the top portion of the drawing. So we've done that. The hot tub, if constructed, will be behind the 25-foot line, which was a requirement of the order of conditions. The commission also asked if we would provide some information on the right-of-way, which you can see on the right-hand side of the property there. There's a 12-foot right-of-way that says right-of-way to the river. The applicants hired an attorney, a title attorney, to look into it, and this original subdivision plan was done in the early 1900s, so it goes back quite a ways. There's quite a bit of history to it. And there's something called the Derelict Fee Statute in Massachusetts, which says that the fee, in a way, is conveyed to the abutters to the center line if it's not retained. The title attorney looked into it and has rendered an email opinion that in going back and looking at the deed, there was no reservation at the time, so that meant that the fee would have been conveyed to the abutters. Now, that's not necessarily conclusive that there wasn't some other taking, but it does mean that the fee was not retained by the original owner, so that it couldn't be conveyed anywhere else. The fee to the center line of the right-of-way follows along with the abutting owner. The other issue relative to the right-of-way was the plan called for what was shown as a paver walkway to go down to the backyard. The issue on that was whether or not they had the right to put pavers in the walkway, and the law on that, as indicated by the attorney, is that you have the right to make an improvement to a way as long as you don't interfere with another's enjoyment of the way. And in this case, where the pavers are at grade and just, if anything, improve the ability for people to walk down the way, you can put pavers in it as long as it's not interfering, and in this case, they would not be interfering. So I think the conclusion is that there was no apparent taking of the way by the town of Danvers. Now, she indicates that her title search there was not conclusive, but you can imagine the number of operations that there are in the registry by the town of Danvers since 1908. It's quite a few. So to look at all those is a huge task, but the fee would have had to have been taken from the abutting owners, not from the original developer. So our conclusion is that most likely the right-of-way belongs to the adjoiners, and that putting pavers in the right-of-way does not interfere with anybody's rights to the right-of-way. Are there any questions on that?
Go ahead, Mike.
Peter, was this a so-called paper way? Was it supposed to be a road at any time?
No, it was never supposed to be a road. It was a right-of-way to the river. It's only 12 feet wide. It wouldn't have even serviced a horse cart back in those days.
So on the other side, there's abutters on the other opposite side of that way?
There are abutters on each side of the way. I think
So they would typically own out to the middle with
To
the
the
right to pass and repass over the entire way?
That's correct. The fee to the ownership to the land underneath, subject to the right, belongs equally to the abutting owners.
So I don't see a problem. The pavers aren't going to obstruct. They won't obstruct, serve as an obstruction.
That's correct. Anybody will still be able to walk down it. The last request we had, were there any further questions on that?
I don't see a problem with that myself.
Okay, thanks.
Could
no,
I,
go-
could I ask a question? You're putting pavers in, have the other butters, is there pavers down already?
There were pavers on this half of the way when the motors started their work, but those have been ripped up. To my knowledge, there weren't any pavers. We gave you an existing and proposed. You can see, well, actually, the pavers they went partially on the applicant's property and partially on the right-of-way. There were no pavers on the other side.
Okay. All right, thank you.
No further questions on that?
Anybody else?
So the pavers that you're proposing to install, they're going to be just on the applicant's property or across the
They were
width of the
designed to be
right-of-way?
just on the applicant's half of the right-of-way, but they'll be flush so that if it happens to go over the line, it's still not interfering with any rights. And you have the right to improve the whole way. And in fact, the right to install utilities is included as well in that legislation. There was times when people were trying to, if there was a private way, they wanted the cable company to pay them a revenue to give cable to the next person. Obviously, that wasn't going to work very well, so they said, no, you have the right to make improvements and you have the right to put normal utility in a right-of-way as well, as long as it's not interfering with another's right.
Okay. Okay, is
The
there any
last-
other questions on this?
The last request we had was, at the very end of our hearing for the initial work here, we had said that we wanted to put impervious pavers down, but we were actually reducing the total amount of imperviousness. And if you remember this site, and if you could go back to the initial site plan, it was covered with pavers. There was a gazebo and all kinds of pavers and pavers in the front yard. It was almost all covered with impervious pavers at the time. We were requesting to put pavers back, but to a lesser extent. And at the very end of the hearing, the commission said, well, we'd like to see you put pervious pavers down. Well, two things have occurred. First of all, we didn't have any soils information below the house because it was covered with either pavers, gazebos, or you couldn't get a backhoe around to dig a test hole. But during the construction of the house, we did get an opportunity to see what kind of material was filled with, and it was a glacial till. It's not a very pervious thing. I had thought that it might have been some kind of dredged sand or something like that, which it often was with hydraulic dredging or something like that, but that was not the case. We definitely saw that the soils were fairly dense till soils and not very permeable themselves. So that I think that to require the pervious pavers is difficult, and the difficulty is that there aren't very many really pervious pavers. If you look online, you see pervious pavers, you'll see pavers that either have gaps in them or something like that, and they call them pervious pavers, but the pavers themselves are not pervious, they're impervious. And they're looking to have...
But it's the holes in each paver that allow the water to pass through.
There are pavers, there are matrices that have actual square holes in them, and there's also pavers that are designed to go in a pattern that have gaps. But they were not looking to have gaps in, for instance, the area out by the river where they wanted to have if you could move it down, the impervious paver patio. That was designed to have furniture on it and so forth, and wouldn't work very well. So what we've come with is a request to take a lot of the paver areas that we had and make them stepping stones, and they're labeled. For instance, from the house to the pier would be stepping stones, and that would be not continuous pavers, but stepping stones. I can't tell you the percent of imperviousness, but there would be grass between each stone and grass around each stone, and you just walk on the stones. All of those walks would be the walk down the 12-foot right-of-way would be that, and we're only asking to have an impervious paver patio and an impervious driveway, but to make them regular impervious pavers, not pervious pavers or pavers with gaps, because it's going to be hard to maintain, and I think it still means a reduction. I think Georgia asked do we still reduce the total amount of imperviousness? And the answer is yes, because we're even gonna reduce it more because we're gonna have stepping stones rather than pavers, so it won't be continuous. So I think it's a reasonable request just to ask to have the impervious pavers in the patio area and in the driveway.
Did we approve the impervious patio originally?
No, it was in the order that it be pervious.
It was originally pervious.
The original submitted plan had shown impervious pavers, still a reduction from what was originally here.
Right,
Right.
But then, as he had indicated, the commission.
okay.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I'm splitting hairs, but with pavers, you have seams, correct?
They all have a seam, that's correct.
So, I mean, that, the water's gonna find that seam and get into the soil.
That is true to some extent, but, and again, if that's the way the commission looks at it, then I think we're fine. They want to have pavers which abut each other, though, not pavers that have gaps. Some pavers, if you look online, that they call pervious pavers, have gaps between them. And they're not looking to do that out by the river, because that's going to be some patio furniture and a little sitting area out there, and they're not looking to have that in the driveway, which is difficult from a plowing standpoint and so forth. The rest of the walkways and stuff will be stepping stones, so it'll be a significant reduction. And that's the kind of paver that was there initially on the existing condition plan. The kind of paver that was there were pavers that had seams, but they're still fairly tight together, and that's what we'd like to use.
Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, I thought you were suggesting in lieu of pavers to have stepping stones like, almost like the slate pieces you see.
That's
that are
correct for the
raised,
walks, but not for
To
the,
accommodate the width of a step so that it's grass in between each one and around each one.
depending on how big your stride is, yes.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But, and we are for the walkway going
So could you show me
out.
where you want to put those? Just go over and show me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's all-
those
We're
dots there.
asking
Yeah,
for
it's those
the
pathways.
stepping stones to go along this walk, the walk out here, and the walk that connects to the impervious paver patio. We're asking that the impervious paver patio, which would be tight pavers, still having seams, be there, and then also in the driveway in front.
What's the material in the right-of-way, Peter?
When you say the material, the underlying material?
What's the right-of-way consist of? It's not
Grass.
just grassy, it's just a
Yep.
grassy right-of-way? Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
So if the patio is impervious, where is the water going to drain to?
It would probably drain towards the river for that
Towards the
small area, but, I mean, you do want to put a little grate on the patio, and that's at the top of a seawall, it's there.
And is erosion of the wall a concern, if it's going
It's a
towards the
granite
river?
wall, it's not eroding.
Okay, okay.
It's not what?
But you're going to slope the pavers to drain toward that wall.
Yes. But we're not parking cars there or anything, it's just strictly patio furniture and probably a table for dining and that kind of thing.
What's the square footage of the patio?
I can only estimate it, the total width of the lot's 50 feet, that probably goes halfway, and Wayne, do you know how wide it is? 28 by 50.
That's the area we classify, but it won't be that. We're gonna actually design it, and there's a small area here that existing pillars that were on their initial plan that is still there. We left them there. We're probably gonna put a planting area here and a planting area against the river to catch some of that. So it'll be a planting area here and up the side of the dock. This will extend right to the river, and this will be contoured, and it will be no further than this 13
And the
foot.
planting areas will be soil where the water
Soil.
would,
Yep. So from right about this area to here, and down along the side of the dock.
did you know that, Peter?
No, I was not aware of that. If you do
Should
that,
we-
that's a place where...
Should we have that in a plan?
Should that be in the plan? How much area is the planting area? How many square feet roughly?
I'd note that if he wanted to remove impervious and replace it with vegetation, that would be something minor that he would not
Yeah.
have to go in front of the
Yeah.
commission for. That's,
You
yeah.
could deal with that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They would clue me in on if that changed on the plan.
Okay. I think overall the intent is what we want. Okay, anything else?
Just, you're
No,
not
we don't
showing
have
a hot
anything
tub
else.
on this, the new plan, right?
Excuse me?
No, there's a slab
down,
for the
yeah,
hot
it's
tub.
right there.
You're showing a slab.
No, that's right
So,
there.
Slab for the hot
let's
tub.
go back to the hot tub. What changed from our original plan?
The hot tub was closer than 25 feet, and the
Yeah.
commission didn't want to see that. They wanted to see it
Yeah.
move back to 25 feet.
But we approved it within the
You
25?
Approved it to be 25 feet back, that's correct.
Okay, so nothing's changed from what we approved then?
No, but it didn't show, obviously, the plan that
Required
we...
a new plan.
it-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It required a new plan, but it hadn't been built yet either.
Okay, let me open it up to the board for any other questions. Mike, are you all set?
No, it's good.
Chelsea, you had any questions?
I have nothing.
No? Ann?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Vanessa?
All set.
Okay. Just one more quick question, I guess, for Georgia. When we approved this project 2 years or so ago, and some work was done before everything had been filed, what was that? Remember they were down there digging, like the morning after we had voted on it?
I believe were, I believe, running some electric line. There was utility work that had taken place, but we did discuss with them, so that
So
was.
that's all
Yeah.
on the up and up, okay. Okay, are there any questions from the public? Seeing none. This is a hearing? It's not a public hearing. Okay, so I guess if someone can make a motion, we could grant permission for these minor modifications.
I'll make a motion that we approve the modification for 15 Tibbet Street, DEP file number 14-1351, and would note that we are approving in the area near the seawall the use of pavers, but the applicant has indicated that we're going to put some plantings there which would assist in the drainage,
Okay,
and which I understand that can be followed up as a minor modification with staff. So I would add that in the motion.
okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you're all set?
Thank you.
Peter, have you been back to China since Whipple Hill?
No. I remember going to China. In fact, you can't work with the Chinese.
We had a project on Whipple Hill, and everybody was concerned about the wall, and Peter brought in pictures from the wall of China.
I actually said it created a great economic opportunity. Maybe it would work out that way.
Just an aside.
Just a little bit of levity.
Okay.
Okay, next up is a notice of intent for 99 Middleton Road, DEP file number 14-1382. The applicant is the Mass Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance. And who is here to represent the state of Massachusetts?
I am. My name is Ken Sanderson. I work for the Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance, 1 Ashbury Place, Boston.
And also, my name is Bill Maher with Niche Engineering. We are the applicant's representative who prepared and submitted the notice of intent filing.
Okay, could you just give us an overview of the project, please?
Sure. Georgia, is it possible to pull up the plan, the highlighted plan, please?
Can you see that?
Yeah, yes, I can. Thank you. So this is an existing portion of the site of the old Danvers State Hospital. What exists at this location is a boiler plant building that has not been in use for several years. And the intent of this NOI filing in this project is to take down the building, the smokestack. We have a wooden shed over on this side of the property. Remove, some of the utility services, that are within the constraints of this site here, and then, turn it all back into woodlands, grass areas, and so forth. Most of the areas will be loomed and seeded with 6 inches of loam, with some sort of seed mix. To the north, at the in the orange line, I guess, and I apologize, I'm partially colorblind, so I can't see for very well. But these are the wetlands up in the north on 2 areas there, and then subsequently we have the 35-foot zone, the 50-foot zone, and the 100-foot buffer zone. And around the perimeter of the project, we are proposing to install a fence, temporary fence for the contractor to store his equipment and so forth, along with sedimentation and erosion controls, also along the perimeter of the area here. Included are staked wattles with silt fence, for those areas. Where there are catch basins, we are proposing to put in some silt sacks to protect any sediment from washing down into those areas here. We do have a construction stabilized entrance consisting of stone that the trucks will travel on, just to remove any sediments and so forth from their tires from traveling on the public ways. There is an old concrete trestle that is probably within 2 feet of the wetlands at this point of the site. That we are also taking down as part of this project. For the most part, we are removing the trestle and its footings down to about 2 feet below the surface, and then just filling them back in with clean material. I'm just trying to think of this, basically, we are removing all impervious areas in this section of the site, be it a roof, the smokestack, sheds, concrete pads out and back, and so forth. Oh, and I apologize. One other thing is out and back of the building here, we are removing a 40,000-gallon underground storage tank that was used to fuel the boiler plant. That's pretty much about it's there is no steep slope for grading and so forth. We're pretty much going to match what is there for the existing grades. For instance, if we're just going to match the contour on this side of the building to the contour on this side of the building, just to keep the flow patterns the same. And I think that's about it.
Okay, just one quick question. Will you be disrupting any of the wetlands during all this project?
No, the intent is not to disturb, any, wetlands, but like I said, at this hinge point area here where there are some wetlands within a couple of feet of the trestle.
Where is the trestle?
It's this long rectangular.
Oh, there it is.
On the northern side of the property. Correct.
Yeah, I can. So it's the whole width of the property, more or less.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's elevated in height, about 10, 12 feet or so in height, and the idea is just to take it down. But like I said, just that hinge point for the wetlands so close to it, we're gonna double up on erosion control devices and so forth to protect them as much as possible.
Okay, so you're anticipating no disruption to the wetlands. It's just that you're looking to work within the 25 and the 50s.
Moving impervious out of the wetland?
Buffer zone
I'm
only.
sorry?
Buffer zone?
Buffer zone, okay.
Yes, there is no impervious area in the wetlands, but we are removing all of the impervious areas, the concrete trestle, the buildings, the sheds, walkways, pads, and so forth. We're removing all of that out as part of this project.
Okay. Okay, let me go to the members of the board, see what further questions they might have. So, Mike, go ahead.
Yes. With regards to the underground tank, what's the likelihood that that soil's probably contaminated with a large oil storage tank in the ground? It's probably been there for, what, 50 years or more?
Correct. There, as part of the NOI, there was a report that was performed by CDW consultants to conduct some test pits and some borings, in the area for any volatile organics, materials, and things of that nature. And based on some of those samples that were collected, they did not indicate the presence of any compounds greater than the minimum detection limits.
And so once this is all cleaned up, is there a proposed use for that land?
I think Ken could answer that better than I could.
At this time, I'm not aware of any plans for that particular property at this time. And I will clarify that the underground storage tank did have a release in the past, and a licensed site professional was used to assess the condition for the bunker oil, very viscous number 6 fuel oils that were stored in that underground storage tank from a long time ago. And a permanent solution statement was achieved under the Master Contingency Plan 310 CMR 40.0000. And at this time, we maintain a temporary solution for that. And part of the objective is to clean up additional soil that is out on the property as part of this project.
So it would require cleanup, and you already have plans for that?
Yes, we do.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Chelsea?
Sure. Do you have like a timeline for this project, and how long do you think it'll take?
Well, I can say that we're doing something similar to another property owned by DCAM out in Lancaster. Though they didn't have a trestle as they do at this site. I would imagine 3 to 4 months for demolition and the removal of this, and then the restoration of the site. As far as when that activity is planning to start, and Ken can correct me if I'm wrong, but once we hopefully receive approval from this commission, the plan is to get the plans ready for bidding purposes.
That is correct. I just don't know the timeline right at this moment.
Okay. And how is any of the demolished material going to be stored on site? Like, is it going to be stockpiled, or is it going to be removed immediately?
Well, I imagine for efficiency on behalf of the contractor, they are going to store piles of materials on the site. We do have in our contract documents that no materials are to be stored within 100 feet of the wetland areas there. So everything will be out of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, unless they just happen to be traveling through the area where we have our stone construction entrance. But yeah, they'll remove it and stockpile it far away, and until it's time for them to bring their trucks in to load and then deliver those to a proper facility.
Cool. That's all I had.
We do know of an entity that's looking for clean fill, just a mile or two south
Yeah,
of
that's
Route
funny. I was going to say that too.
Is there any clean fill coming out of it?
Yeah.
I would imagine most of it is, the building and all that. Ann, any questions?
I'm not too crazy about the stockpiling, even though it's going to be far away. Who's going to monitor that and make sure that it is not near the wetlands?
There will be, obviously, identifications, installed by the contractor with his temporary construction fence, his erosion controls, and so forth. The site will be monitored, by DCAM personnel, during construction activities, as well as the architect and the engineer of record, myself.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is that it, Ian?
Yep.
Vanessa?
What did you say you were going to be seeding the restored area with?
With grass seed.
Okay, so is there going to be a mowing schedule for that? Or are you letting it be long?
I'm sorry, what was that last part of your statement?
Is there a schedule to mow the grass?
I'm sure probably, consistent with what they have on the property, now. But perhaps Ken could answer that.
So I'm not sure at this point what the plan is for the maintenance of the grass on the property. That is up to the site manager. Typically they use a New England seed mix, and that is mowed. But that hasn't been determined at this point.
Okay.
I just had one more question. Are you done, Vanessa? Sorry.
I think I just had one more question about monitoring the establishment of the grass seed.
Okay, in what respects?
To make sure that it grows and it's not all bare after a period of time, that the seed actually sprouts and takes root?
Yes, that is the intent, is that the contractor will not be relieved of his obligation until the area is stabilized and vegetation is growing. And I don't mean a half an inch of grass, that it's got to be several inches of grass there to supplant any rainy weather or snowy weather, so that we don't have erosion going into the wetlands.
And I'll add that the Division of Capital Asset Management has a surplus property program, and that's their responsibility to maintain that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all set? Mike, do you have a follow-up question?
Does it become, because you've done a similar project like this, I was wondering, does it become an issue where you just have too much stuff stockpiled to where it becomes a concern that it might get into the wetland? And if so, do you have a truck stuff out as you go along?
Well, I can tell you that the other site where we were basically doing the same thing has a much smaller footprint than this site. The wetlands was right up against the building, and I'm sorry, the buffer zone was right up against the building, and so it's a very tight, contained site. I can tell you that the contractor, and I'm out there on a weekly basis, the contractor has done a great job with maintaining his erosion controls, his fencing. His stockpiles are all outside the 100-foot buffer zone, just as I had mentioned earlier, would be part of this project. And the site does get viewed by the town, and at this time we haven't had any offenses that would warrant any further issues against the contractor.
But there'll be some monitoring of the stockpiling then to make sure it doesn't get out of hand.
Well, as I said, there will be DCAM personnel, on board, while the contractor is out there, observing this, and he will, obviously, be enforcing those regulations for keeping material out of the buffer zones and to get rid of the equipment or the debris as soon as possible. But, typically that's a means and methods operation by the contractor. We can't tell the contractor to, spend more money, with his trucks, rather than, on a daily basis, to make money and to save money. They prefer just to stockpile it and then just get rid of it all at once.
All right, thank you.
Okay, just a few other questions. Truck access to the site will be opposite the hospital parking lot, as I'm looking at the picture on our memo?
Yes.
Okay, and with any kind of demolition, I'm sure there's all kinds of dust generated. Is there any provisions for controlling dust? Yeah, I mean, you had that rehab hospital is right there, so I imagine they don't want too much dust flying through the air.
Right. Well, obviously during demolition operations, the contractor will get water from the nearest fire hydrants, through the permitted through the Danvers Department of Public Works to apply water on the areas while they're taking things down and while the area is being used for demolition, just to reduce any dust levels from abutting properties and of course the wetland area.
Okay. Now, I noticed yesterday that between Maple Street and this site, there's a small electrical substation. Is there going to be any impact on that?
Nope, that's still planning to remain.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your answer.
That is being maintained. That will not be demoed as part of this project.
Okay. And is there any asbestos within the old power plant?
I know that an abatement was done, or an abatement report was performed. I'm just not versed on their language and what they found, but perhaps Ken?
Yes, so there is a variety of different sources of asbestos for thermal system insulation and other types of asbestos type containing materials on site. And there was a asbestos inspection performed through CDW consultants. We have a full project list of those items, and the full abatement will occur prior to the demolition of this project.
Okay, good, thank you. Is there any public comment? Mr. Duggan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Matthew Duggan. So you just mentioned the power plant. So this is the location. It says 99 Middleton Road. So this is actually the old steam plant for the state hospital, and it's the substation that was mentioned. That's Danvers Electric. So that's right near the Hawthorne Post Office. So just a short distance, there's a number of residential properties. It's actually a R3 zone. So this cleanup of the asbestos, this will be done following approved procedures from the state, right? The cleanup there'll be dust abatement procedures and that kind of thing, I assume?
I would presume so, and I think
Okay.
that's what we should expect.
Okay.
Correct. This will be under the auspices of the state building inspector.
Yep, and Mass DEP's air quality program, and there'll be a work plan that'll be developed for the containment and cleanup of all asbestos-containing materials.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
All right, great. That's great. Thanks for the information.
That's it?
Yep, all set.
Any other public comment? Hearing none. This is an open hearing, right, Georgia? Okay, so someone make a motion, we can close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for 99 Middleton Road, DEP file number 14-1382.
Motion been made to close the hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to the, George, just a bit of a clarification. Do we need to vote on a waiver? We don't.
The only work within the 35 and 50 is temporary alteration. You would need a waiver if it was permanent alteration.
Okay, good.
You would want order of conditions.
Yes.
Peter, we want an order of conditions?
What's that?
Order of conditions, though?
That's what we're going to
Oh,
vote
okay.
on next.
All right.
So if someone could make a motion, we could issue an order of conditions unless someone has an objection to us not doing it. If someone's willing to make that motion, please do.
Or I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 99 Middleton Road, DEP file number 14-1382.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Good enough. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Have a good evening.
Yes, thank you very much. Good night.
George, are all the mitigation controls will be, they don't need to be spelled out because they're part of the standard conditions?
Yep, and they're shown on the plan as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you talked about the state engineer, there'll be a state, state building inspector?
Exactly, so
It's like a
because it
whole
is a state
slew of
property, they
people.
have state building permits, state building inspections, it's separate from
Yeah,
them,
okay.
from us.
So another layer of
Yeah.
Just as an aside,
oversight, yeah.
they sold off the hospital property, but they didn't sell off the power plant property years ago. Is that right?
I'm not sure.
Cemetery is still there, too.
Okay, next up is an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for 152 Endicott Street, DEP file number 14-1381. The applicant is Pete Doucette.
So I'm Andrew Tebow of Goddard Consulting out of Northborough, Massachusetts. The ANRAD package was filed by Alan Major, who we have Tim Williams here with, and I delineated the wetlands, and I will be the representative tonight.
I'm pulling it up, sorry.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
They all colored plans as well? Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Under your flow.
Excellent, yep. So as shown on the colored plans you guys just got handed, there's one bordering vegetated wetland system that starts up at the top of the property with flag series A1. It wraps the line of the existing parking lot along the edge of the river off-site at A34. So as you see on the right side of the property, where from A1 to about A17, the line almost directly hugs that existing parking lot. The parking lot there is all paved. These are the dilapidated buildings. It was an old Denny's and some old motel buildings on Endicott Street. I'm sure you guys have probably seen that as you drive by. So that area is currently still a paved parking lot. The edge of pavement that you see marked, there's a couple feet of old lawn, and then the property quickly slopes down. In that area of the wetlands, it's essentially just a 10YR21 mucky soil to a dense Phragmites stand. At the very back of the lot, we have the Waters River, which we determined to be a tidal river. So Goddard Consulting performed 2 different site visits here. We visited it during low tide. So on the colored plan, that channel that you can see visible is the river at low tide. There's a cut in the bank that shows where that river is always flowing. Our mean annual high water line, we delineate at the top of the high tide. That's basically right at the edge of where that property slopes down, and at high tide, that water was observed flowing all the way at that level. To the left side of the river, once we go up from flags about A20 to the rest of the property, between flags A21 and A22, that's actually like a crushed seashell slope down. It's just an old landscaping plan from the parking lot, and that's a very, very steep slope right there. As you go left from there for the remainder of the flags, it's once again a very dense Phragmites stand. Behind that area, farther into the wetlands, is a mapped salt marsh, and that's a pretty naturalized habitat still. But everything that basically abuts this parking lot was Phragmites. As far as upland plants, we had a couple crabapple trees that were planted there years ago, and then one eastern red cedar by flag A16, and that's about what we had on site. It was a relatively easy 12-slope delineation because the land sloped down pretty aggressively from the parking lot. And then at the bottom of the site, we show the 100-year flood line as well.
What is the red border?
The red border is the property boundary itself. So that's the one parcel of land that the Denny's and the motel buildings are all on.
Okay, I'll just ask one quick question. Has any thought been given to the impact of sea level rise? You know, and the shrinking of the property, the usable property?
Sure, so at this time, that hasn't been considered by our office. I don't know if Alan Major has looked into that. At this point, we were just trying to confirm the resource areas on the site, so we delineated the high water line as we found it.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Tim Williams with Allen and Major Associates. So essentially what we're here for is just to delineate the wetlands. The developer has the intent of redeveloping the site, but the first step is to lock in the resource areas. This project is going to require, obviously, notice of intent. We're going to have to go through, I believe, the planning board. It's also going to be subject to MIPA. So this is really the first step in the process, is just lock these in so he knows what the resource areas are, so he can go ahead and we can start putting conceptual plans together for what the end user is going to be.
Okay, good, thanks. Mike, you're chomping at the bit, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you're asking us essentially to agree where you've shown the no build or the buffer zone areas. But we really would need to go out there, it seems, before we say, yeah, you're right, that's where they are. I mean, it
Right.
seems to me we need to go out and actually look where you are.
Yeah, no, I
and
don't
say,
disagree.
we
Absolutely.
agree or don't agree.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. You would,
Yeah, I just
we're just
wanted-
looking for your confirmation on the wetland resources that was
Yeah,
flagged.
we're not gonna do that yet.
Yeah,
No, I mean, we could
don't
schedule
worry,
a site
we're-
walk tonight.
Yeah, in the I mean, as you recall, with the last ANRAD process, the commission wanted to hire a consultant. I think if you go through the memo and the conversation
Yeah.
here, if the board wanted to do a consultant, they could, and then they would come back to the next meeting.
Okay, would we
Yeah.
first do the site visit and then say we better get our own?
What I would suggest is that you would have the consultant first. That would kind of delay things to do the site visit and then probably do another site visit with the
Yeah.
consultant
Right,
you guys
yeah,
hire.
let's have someone look at it.
And they're gonna pay for the consultant, right?
The consultant fees are taken from the application fee as
Yeah.
written
Okay.
in the memo.
Sure. May I ask the commission one question? I just wanted to see, is it possible just to schedule a sidewalk with you guys? I think just based on the ease of this delineation, much of the line is from the parking lot itself. There's really not much room to wiggle a flag in any direction. So I'm wondering if just for everybody's ease involved, as well as the applicants and yours, if we could just schedule a sidewalk and get out there. I think the commission would probably agree that the line is pretty straightforward.
Okay.
I don't think any of us are wetland experts
Right.
whatsoever.
No, I think we'll vote on it, but I think we would like to have this one peer reviewed.
Sure, understood.
Yeah.
Thank you for considering.
It's a sensitive.
You know, yeah, and we all,
It's a real sensitive
we're,
area.
we're pretty much all familiar with the property. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't have to get down to the
Yeah.
nuts and bolts just yet, but yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
we drive by it several times a week, so we
So
can.
maybe
Yeah,
we
I'm
should
sure you're
set
very familiar with how it looks.
Did this come before us as an informal discussion before?
We had a proposal, someone wanted to build something here, and I'm not sure how far we got, but then they withdrew.
They withdrew, right,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
It certainly needs revamping. I don't think any of us would
Welcome project.
disagree with
I
that.
think it's an exciting project, yes.
Yeah.
I think several boards would welcome a project. Okay, so, Mike, are you all set?
Yeah, I just don't know how we proceed from here. If
Okay,
we
well,
continue this and get an expert or.
So if the commission, I think tonight could be a good time, if the commission wanted to, you would use this meeting time to vote for staff to review and find a peer consultant, and then at the next meeting, schedule that site
Do we have a
visit.
list to work off of, or someone is?
So we usually go with three, we ask three based on our recommended consultant list. So it would be Bill Manuel, Hancock, GZM based on experience with coastal and also price.
And price,
Yep.
right?
And people that want to do it. We may say, hey, would you like to do this? And they could say no.
I
Sorry.
don't think anyone will say no to that one.
Yeah.
What is it they really
All right, Mike,
want
you all
us
set?
to do?
Yeah, I am.
Chelsea, any questions?
Nope.
Ann?
What do they want us to do? That's really what I'm saying.
So
It's,
they're
okay,
asking us to
validate,
agree to this line. So once
Agree to
we
the
agree to
lines.
it, then the
Okay.
buffer is set,
all right.
the buildable area is set.
Technically, is this what the property owner owns, this red line?
Yes, that's, if you look up on the tax parcels, that's the map and parcel itself to that exact area. So what we are basically asking is to eventually issue an order of resource area delineation, just confirming this line.
Okay.
So when we go forward with the notice of intent for the project, we have confirmed lines, can confirm buffers.
Okay, I just wanted to verify what I was looking at.
No, of
here.
course, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
This commission doesn't get a lot of Danvers doesn't receive a lot of ANRADs.
No.
Right. It's
So
the
I'm
only
looking
second one.
forward to it.
Yeah.
We're happy to mix it up for you then.
And it's important to, I think it's nice to see projects submit.
It's good for the
ANRADs
board to,
through the
Oh, yeah,
process.
absolutely.
And the last thing we want to do is come forward with a notice of intent, and then we're arguing about the wetland line.
Yeah, exactly.
Move it, then we have to move buildings and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Nope, yep, happy to go through this process with you.
all right.
Vanessa, any other questions?
No.
Just one quick question, Georgia. Say we were to approve this, how long are those lines?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, so they receive what is called an order of resource area delineation, similar to an order of conditions. It's recorded, it can have conditions, the commission signs it. Very rarely do they have conditions, but that gives them 3 years to then develop a plan based on upland buildable area.
That's just to propose a plan. They don't have to complete the
Exactly.
plan.
So, no, right now there is no plan, we don't know. The
Right.
commission could approve these lines and then we never see these gentlemen
Right,
again.
but I guess my question asked another way. If we approved it
Never know.
tonight,
Yep.
they don't have 3 years from then to complete the project.
No, they
could go on
have,
beyond
they
that.
can complete their project from the minute they receive an order of conditions for a project.
Okay. Okay.
These lines are memorialized for 3 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's interesting because
okay.
we did have a project where they actually, the lines changed. Do
Yep.
you remember? We went out
did.
and they were no longer where they originally were
And they
set.
said, can we use the old line? And staff had said, can you do a new delineation?
And that's going to happen here.
And I
You know,
remember.
not, maybe not in my lifetime, but sooner or later.
Okay, so-
What it
This is a public hearing? All right, is there any public comment?
is. Okay, line.
Hearing none, I think, as chairman, I'd like to propose that we turn this over to staff and have her solicit and select someone to do a peer review on this.
Do we need to
plan?
vote on that, Peter?
I think so.
Yeah.
So that being said, unless someone has different ideas, if someone can make a motion to that effect, we'll proceed from there.
I move that we engage an outside engineer for a peer review. Is that the proper, an engineer? Yeah, for a peer review of this project prior to setting up a site visit.
Okay? So,
And
just,
we-
let's just work on the logistics of that for a second.
Do we need to continue the date
Yeah, so
as
we
well?
Yeah, we'd have to
first just
continue,
vote on the
yeah.
consultant. Once
Yeah.
the commission says yes, staff can solicit a consultant. Then
Okay.
the next step would be for you guys to discuss continuing the
Yeah.
hearing. It really depends, if the consultant says, yeah, I can do a delineation by the end of next week, then we can all meet together with the consultant on site to go over that could possibly happen in 2 weeks. I'm not sure until I talk to a consultant. So I would suggest continuing to the next hearing and while staff works, and then.
Okay, so should we vote on the peer review and then vote on continuing the hearing?
Mike's in the middle of his motion for
Okay, Mike.
I
soliciting.
move that we engage a consultant for peer review.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now the matter of the public hearing. Now we have to continue the public hearing until at least April 28th?
Correct.
Okay, so someone can make a motion to that effect?
Make a motion that we continue the public hearing for DEP file number 14-13812 to at least our April 28th meeting.
Motion been made. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then all set? Okay, thanks, guys.
The opportunity to
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll
Oh,
need-
yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure if some of the flags were, again, delineated under the titles.
Yeah.
You had to go out and actually rehang them.
Yep. They may be missing, they may be gone, they may, yeah, absolutely, understood.
And the-
Thank you.
and the
Okay, thank you.
squatters are helping themselves to things too.
Hey, this will be fun to do.
Uh,
Those poor guys.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is, it's been requested to continue to the 28th, so I'm proposing that we don't even consider it an open hearing,
Right.
so we don't have to vote on continuing.
Good.
Is that kosher?
I think so. Right, Georgia?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
The other
question.
one, since they requested to continue,
Yeah.
to put on, so it's not,
Hasn't
we haven't
even
even
Haven't
opened it.
started.
Yeah, yeah. So just any old or new business, Georgia?
No.
All right.
Okay, good. Good job, everybody.
I make a
Uh,
motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I
didn't
second
even
that
ask.
It's
motion.
good to see you back at these meetings.
Okay, the motion's been made to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
I'm looking forward to that
No
site
time to
visit
waste.
at Denny's. I'm looking forward to the Denny's thing, because we don't get to do that a lot.